The world is not designed to make you powerful. It is designed to make you obedient, distracted, and comfortable enough to never question the cage you're living in. And the saddest part is that most people don't even realize it. They wake up, grab their phone before they even open their eyes properly, and dive straight into a digital world built to steal their attention, their focus, and eventually their potential. They spend hours scrolling, comparing themselves to people who aren't even real, drowning in entertainment that gives them nothing but a temporary escape from the life they refuse to fix. This is not accidental. This is by design. You think this world wants you focused. No. A focused man is dangerous. A focused man can't be controlled. A focused man sees through the noise, builds discipline, and becomes someone who rises above the system that benefits from his weakness. That's why everything around you is engineered to keep your mind occupied with garbage. The apps are engineered to keep you addicted. The shows are engineered to keep you emotionally invested. The news is engineered to keep you afraid. You cannot think clearly when your mind is constantly being attacked by meaningless stimulation. And here's the cold truth that most people are terrified to admit. You let it happen. You hand your attention away like it has no value. You let your time bleed out through pointless habits. You choose to consume, even though consumption has never built a single empire. You choose distraction over discipline, pleasure over purpose, entertainment over evolution. Every day you make a decision, consciously or not, about who you are becoming. And most people choose to become nothing. You want to know why you feel stuck, drained, unmotivated, and lost. Because your mind is not your own. You've given it to everyone else. You've allowed society to program your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions. When you wake up, your first instinct is to check the world instead of checking yourself. Think about that for a moment. The first thing you do every single day is train your brain to react instead of act, to consume instead of create, to watch life instead of live it, and then you wonder why your goals feel impossible. You wonder why you can't stay consistent. You wonder why you can't focus for more than 15 minutes without feeling the itch to be distracted. The world has conditioned you into a mental slave, and you don't even need chains. You're chained by habit, by impulse, by comfort, by everything you choose to prioritize over your purpose. But here's the part no one ever tells you. The moment you take back control of your mind, the entire game changes. The moment you consciously reject distraction, you begin to separate yourself from 99% of people. When you decide that your time matters, your attention matters, your goals matter, something inside you shifts. You start seeing the traps that used to catch you. You start noticing how easily people waste their lives. You start understanding how weak the world becomes when you simply refuse to participate in its distractions. Once you reclaim your mind, you realize that focus isn't just a skill, it's a weapon that cuts through all the noise around you, a weapon that gives you clarity in a world built on confusion, a weapon that allows you to build, improve, and rise while everyone else is too busy watching someone else live their dreams. The ones who control their attention control their future. The ones who control their focus control their destiny. The world wants you weak, but you don't have to obey that design. Once you see the trap, you can't unsee it. And once you choose focus, your life will never look the same again. There is a moment in life where everything changes, and it's not when you get lucky, or when someone finally believes in you, or when the world suddenly decides to hand you an opportunity. That moment comes the day you finally decide to stop looking outward and turn your attention inward. The day you stop chasing approval, stop watching everyone else's progress, stop measuring your life through the eyes of other people, and begin investing your energy entirely into building the strongest, sharpest, most disciplined version of yourself. Because the truth is painfully simple. The world rewards the man who focuses on himself. The world respects the man who builds himself. The world follows the man who no longer needs anything from it. When you direct your focus inward, you start seeing life differently. You stop caring who's ahead of you or behind you because you're too busy constructing your own path. You stop caring who doubts you because you're too dedicated to proving yourself right. You stop wasting time arguing, complaining, gossiping, or comparing because those things give you nothing in return. You begin to understand that every ounce of energy you spend on distractions is energy stolen from your growth. and when you finally choose to pour everything into yourself. Your health, your discipline, your craft, your ambition, you transform from an ordinary participant in life into a force. Most people never experience that transformation because they live as spectators. They admire winners but never become one. They study successful people but never study themselves. They chase validation but never chase evolution. They want to win, but they want it without the sacrifice, without the self-accountability, without the discomfort of real growth. They want the crown without building the kingdom. But the man who focuses on himself plays a different game. He realizes that nobody can build his body for him. Nobody can strengthen his mind for him. Nobody can elevate his skills, expand his vision, or lift him out of mediocrity. The world can offer tools, but only he can use them. When you begin working on yourself with full intensity, people start noticing something different about you. Your presence becomes heavier. Your voice becomes clearer. Your decisions become sharper. You begin walking with purpose, speaking with conviction, and acting with intention. You stop seeking attention because you become impossible to ignore. You don't need to tell people you've changed because the results speak louder than your words ever could. And the more progress you make, the more you realize that external validation was always worthless compared to the internal validation you built through discipline. Focusing on yourself creates a ripple effect. Your confidence grows because you trust yourself. Your discipline grows because you've proven you can control yourself. Your opportunities grow because you've made yourself valuable. When you improve your skills, doors open. When you improve your mind, your perspective expands. When you improve your discipline, you become unstoppable. And suddenly, the world that once felt overwhelming starts bending to your will, not because it changed, but because you did. This is the secret most people never learn. Life becomes significantly easier when you become significantly better. Success stops being something you chase and becomes something you attract. Money begins to flow because competence creates value. Relationships begin to flow because high-value people gravitate towards strength and clarity. Confidence begins to flow because you have undeniable evidence that you are becoming someone extraordinary. Everything improves the moment you do, and the journey doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. It requires showing up when you don't feel like it. It requires choosing progress over pleasure, purpose over distraction, growth over comfort. The man who focuses on himself becomes immune to the emotional chaos that destroys others. He doesn't fold when life gets difficult. He doesn't panic when things go wrong. He has built himself into someone who can carry his own weight, solve his own problems, and rise above his old weaknesses. When you realize this, you stop questioning whether focusing on yourself is selfish. You understand it's the foundation for everything you want to become. Because the only way to win in this world is to master the only thing you truly control, yourself. There comes a point in every man's life where he must look in the mirror and confront one uncomfortable truth. Nobody is coming to save him. Not his friends, not his family, not society, not some lucky break. If you don't take control of your own life, your own habits, your own trajectory, then life will control you and it will drag you exactly where everyone else ends up: average, stressed, distracted, and quietly disappointed. And the reason so many men never rise above that level is simple. They don't protect their focus. They let anything and everything steal their attention. They give away their energy to people, problems, and emotions that were never worth it. And then they wonder why they feel lost. You need to understand something that most people never accept. Focus is the currency of greatness. Not talent, not luck, not motivation. Focus. The ability to lock your mind onto the mission, to cut out the noise, to remove the distractions, and to commit yourself to the work even when your emotions try to sabotage you. That is what separates winners from watchers. That is what turns a normal man into someone dangerous, someone capable, someone who cannot be stopped. But focus doesn't happen by accident. You don't wake up one day with a disciplined mind. You have to build it. You have to strip away everything that weakens you, distracts you, or pulls you backwards. And the moment you start removing those things, you feel a shift in your soul, because you finally begin to realize how much of your life has been wasted on things that gave you nothing in return. You look at how much time you spent scrolling, arguing, procrastinating, overthinking, chasing people who don't care, consuming endless entertainment, running in circles instead of running towards something meaningful. When you see it clearly, it almost feels like you've been living half asleep. And that's the moment you wake up. From that moment on, focus becomes your shield. When people try to pull you into drama, you ignore it. When your old habits try to tempt you, you resist them. When your emotions try to convince you that you're tired, overwhelmed, unmotivated, you silence them and get back to work. Because you understand that your emotions are temporary, but your progress is permanent. You understand that every time you choose comfort over discipline, you're strengthening your weaknesses instead of strengthening your character. And you refuse to live like that. The world becomes very different when you master your focus. You stop being reactive. You stop being tossed around by circumstances. You stop being influenced by people who aren't on your level. You start thinking long-term. You start planning your days, your goals, your growth. You begin to build momentum, and momentum is one of the most dangerous forces a man can possess. Once you begin moving forward with real intensity, real discipline, real clarity, you become hard to interrupt and impossible to derail. That's when people start asking how you're doing it. That's when opportunities start appearing. That's when everything in your life begins to align with your mission, because your mind is finally aligned with it too. But the beautiful part is this: the stronger your focus becomes, the easier everything else becomes. The gym stops being a struggle because your mind is locked on the result. Work stops being boring because your mind is locked on the purpose. Self-improvement stops being a chore because your mind is locked on the identity you're building. Focus makes discipline feel natural. Focus makes sacrifice feel rewarding. Focus turns the hard path into something you crave, and the truth is, focus isn't just about productivity. It's about power. When you focus on the wrong things, your life weakens. When you focus on the right things, your life strengthens. When you focus on problems, you feel small. When you focus on solutions, you feel unstoppable. When you focus on other people, you lose yourself. When you focus on yourself, you find your potential. A focused man cannot be manipulated. A focused man cannot be broken. A focused man cannot be ordinary because he has chosen to rise above the noise that controls everyone else. You begin to notice that people who lack focus are the ones who complain the most, fail the most, and blame the most. They talk about their goals instead of working toward them. They wait for the perfect moment instead of creating one. They look for shortcuts instead of building skill. And you realize you are no longer like them because you've committed to a different level of existence. And once you commit at that level, the world stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like a battlefield where you know exactly what you're fighting for. You no longer waste your time, your energy, your mental strength. You use everything you have to sharpen your mind, elevate your life, and move closer to the man you're destined to become. When we talk about focusing on yourself, most people imagine something soft, something comfortable, something like sitting in silence and daydreaming about the future they want. But real focus, the kind of focus that actually transforms your life, is not peaceful, it's not gentle, and it's definitely not easy. Real focus is a discipline. It is a fight, a battle you enter with yourself every single day. And it demands sacrifice, it demands consistency, and it demands that you cut through every distraction that tries to pull you away from your purpose. Because here's the truth that most people never want to accept. Your biggest enemy is not the world, not society, not the competition. Your biggest enemy is the noise around you and the noise inside your own head. The noise that says, check your phone. The noise that says, take a break, you deserve it. The noise that whispers, you can do it later. And every time you listen, every time you give in, you drift further from the life you say you want. Extreme focus means saying no. Not once, not occasionally, but constantly. Saying no to the meaningless conversations, no to the gossip, no to the distractions disguised as entertainment, no to the people who don't add value to your mission. Because when you start focusing on yourself at a high level, you begin to see how much time you used to waste. You begin to see how much energy you gave to things that didn't matter at all. This keynote explores what happens when you build the discipline to shut the world out, even when the world demands your attention. And you'll notice something powerful. The moment you stop giving energy to distractions, your life begins to move faster. Your goals begin to take shape. Your progress accelerates, not because anything external changed, but because you finally committed to internal mastery. Imagine waking up every single day with a sense of direction so strong that nothing can shake it. You open your eyes already knowing what you need to do. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't argue with your feelings. You don't wait for motivation. You move because discipline has replaced emotion. And that discipline forms the backbone of your focus. But discipline is not built in a single moment. It's built in the thousands of tiny decisions you make throughout the day. The decision to work instead of scroll. The decision to train instead of rest. The decision to learn instead of complain. These choices compound, shaping your future faster than you can imagine. What feels small today becomes unstoppable tomorrow. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you're cutting pieces of your old life away, because you are. You're removing everything that made you weak, everything that kept you average, everything that distracted you from becoming the strongest version of yourself. And people will not understand it. They will complain. They will say you're distant. They will say you've changed. And you have. Because growth requires transformation, and transformation requires letting go. Extreme focus also demands an honest look at your habits. What you eat, what you watch, where you spend your time, who you allow into your environment, all of it matters. If your environment is filled with noise, there is no space for clarity. If your day is filled with distractions, there is no room for discipline. If your mind is filled with chaos, there is no capacity for greatness. This is why high achievers isolate themselves. Not because they hate people, but because they understand the value of a controlled environment. They understand that you cannot build an empire surrounded by chaos. You need silence. You need structure. You need intention. Every minute must serve a purpose. Even rest must be strategic, not accidental. And as your focus sharpens, something incredible happens. You begin to see opportunities other people are blind to. You begin to think deeper, work smarter, move quicker. You become more dangerous, more capable, more efficient. Not because you gained some magical talent, but because you removed every force that used to weaken you. All the wasted hours gone, all the unnecessary noise gone, all the emotional clutter gone. This is the discipline of extreme focus. Choosing purpose over comfort, choosing progress over pleasure, choosing yourself over the world's expectations. It's not easy, but greatness never comes from easy things. It comes from the willingness to do what others avoid, from the courage to isolate yourself from distractions, and from the discipline to fully commit to your own path. When you decide to focus on yourself, truly focus on yourself, something remarkable begins to happen. Your life starts shifting from something ordinary into something undeniable. And most people never reach this stage because they spend their entire lives trying to be noticed instead of building something so powerful, so strong, and so disciplined that the world has no choice but to notice. They're busy shouting for attention, while the people who actually win are quietly building a life that speaks for itself. This keynote dives into that transformation, the process of becoming someone who doesn't chase validation, but earns respect through action, effort, and self-elevation. Because the real goal is not to convince people you're valuable. The real goal is to become valuable. When you focus on growth, improvement, and mastery, your life becomes a statement in itself. And that is a level of power most people will never experience. Imagine walking into a room and not having to explain who you are, not because you're flashy or loud, but because your presence carries weight. Your discipline shows, your progress shows, your energy shows. People can feel that you've been working, evolving, moving with intention. That's the kind of life you build when you put your head down and focus on becoming the strongest, smartest, most capable version of yourself. But here's what most people misunderstand. This level of transformation requires an almost ruthless dedication. You have to stop seeking approval. You have to stop asking permission. You have to stop waiting for someone to tell you you're good enough, because nobody is coming to hand you confidence. Nobody is coming to hand you success. You have to create it from the ground up through disciplined action. And while you're building this kind of life, you will experience something unexpected. The world begins treating you differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. When you elevate your habits, your energy elevates with them. When you improve your mindset, your external reality begins to shift. When you work relentlessly on yourself, people see the results even before you speak. You become someone whose life communicates power without needing to make noise about it. This keynote focuses on the inner work that creates outer transformation. The work that nobody applauds, nobody praises, nobody even sees. The late nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices, the routines, the repetition, the small disciplines that add up over time. This is the work that builds the kind of person who wins silently. And when the victory finally becomes visible, people call it luck, they call it talent, they call it natural ability. But you know it came from one thing: relentless focus. You'll also discover that building a life that cannot be ignored means removing everything that weakens you. You cannot rise while holding on to your old habits, your old excuses, your old distractions. When your goal is to become undeniable, you don't get to keep the things that made you average. You don't get to keep the laziness, the negativity, the inconsistency. They have to go. They don't belong on the path you're walking now. Another part of this transformation is learning to move differently. Winners don't broadcast every step they take. They don't tell everybody their plans. They don't announce their goals for validation. They act, they work, they evolve in silence. And when they finally reveal what they've built, it's already too late for anyone to doubt them. The work has already spoken. This level of focus also means getting comfortable with being misunderstood. When you stop living for approval, people will say you've become distant. When you stop wasting time, people will say you've changed. When you start moving with intention, people will say you're selfish. But that's because they were used to the version of you that had no direction. They were used to the version of you that entertained distractions. They were used to the version of you that wasn't chasing greatness. Now you're building a life with purpose, a life with structure, a life with clarity, a life that is rising above everything you were before. And the people who cannot rise with you will naturally fall away. That's how evolution works. That's how growth works. That's how focusing on yourself creates separation. And eventually, something powerful happens. You no longer care about being noticed. You no longer care about opinions. You no longer care about external validation, because your life is speaking louder than any words ever could. Your actions have built a foundation of strength that cannot be ignored. Your discipline has carved out a new identity. Your focus has turned you into someone who doesn't need to seek respect, because respect arrives on its own. This is the stage where you rise from chasing acknowledgement to becoming undeniable. The stage where your work becomes your voice. The stage where your results create their own gravity. The stage where you no longer announce your greatness, you simply embody it. When you finally learn to focus on yourself, not for a week, not for a month, but consistently, something extraordinary begins to build inside you. It's called momentum. And momentum is the one force in your life that can take you from average to exceptional faster than anything else. Most people never experience this power because they quit right before it arrives. They stop right before their mind clicks. They fall off track right before their life starts aligning. But when you stay locked in long enough, when you keep your focus pointed inward and your discipline pointed forward, you unlock a level of self-mastery that changes everything. Momentum starts quietly. It doesn't come with fireworks, applause, or some dramatic moment. It comes from small, repeatable actions you barely notice at first. Waking up early 3 days in a row, training when you don't feel like it, reading instead of scrolling, protecting your energy, cutting off old habits that dragged you backward. You don't see the transformation immediately, but something subtle shifts. Your mind gets sharper. Your discipline gets firmer. Your choices get stronger. And before you realize it, you're becoming someone who's difficult to stop. This keynote is about that transformation, the moment your life starts accelerating because you've finally created consistency. When your goals stop being dreams and start becoming destinations. When your personality shifts from reactive to intentional. When you stop being controlled by emotions, distractions, and other people's expectations and start being driven by your own standards. This is when you understand the real meaning of focusing on yourself. Not selfishness, not ego, but self-elevation. Momentum is the point where you stop battling yourself and start building yourself. where discipline stops being a chore and becomes a part of your identity. You stop asking, how do I stay motivated? And start saying, this is just who I am now. And that shift is what separates people who dabble from people who dominate. Because once momentum takes over, the effort feels different. The grind feels different. The whole journey feels different. You move with purpose. You develop tunnel vision. You wake up with a sense of direction instead of a sense of confusion. And here's the truth: when you generate this kind of internal force, people around you notice. They may not say it out loud, but they feel your change. They sense your commitment. They feel your energy rising. Some will be inspired by it. Some will be intimidated by it. Some will distance themselves because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. But none of that matters, because momentum wasn't built for them. It was built for you. Momentum also reveals the people who were only connected to your old version. The ones who liked you when you were lost, distracted, or unfocused. The ones who benefited when you weren't serious about your life. As you elevate, those connections naturally fade. Your time becomes more valuable. Your energy becomes more protected. Your goals become more demanding. And the more momentum you build, the less tolerance you have for anything that slows you down. This stage of focusing on yourself is where you evolve from discipline to mastery. Discipline is doing what needs to be done. Mastery is becoming the kind of person who doesn't need reminders. It becomes instinct. It becomes your nature. It becomes your identity. That's when life starts responding differently. Opportunities appear, doors open, people take you seriously, and it's not luck, it's alignment. When you operate with momentum, the world starts moving in your direction. Momentum also gives you emotional strength. When you're building yourself every day, you don't break easily. Stress doesn't hit the same way. Problems don't overwhelm you. Fear doesn't paralyze you. You've built too much power internally to be shaken externally, and that kind of strength is rare. That kind of strength is earned. That kind of strength is the result of focusing on yourself long enough to become unrecognizable from who you used to be. And the best part is this: once you build momentum, you no longer doubt yourself. You no longer wonder if you're capable. You no longer question your worth or your direction. You've seen proof in your results, your discipline, your mindset, your progress. Momentum becomes your evidence. It becomes your fuel. It becomes the force that pulls you forward even on your hardest days, because you've built too much progress to throw away. Momentum is how you win, not because you're better than others, but because you're better than the old you. When you stay locked in on your growth, your development, your goals, you create a life that moves faster, stronger, and more powerfully than anything you ever imagined. This is self-mastery. This is elevation. This is what happens when you make yourself the priority and refuse to break focus. As we wrap up this journey, through focus, discipline, and self-mastery, the central truth is clear. The only person who can truly change your life is you. Everything we discussed, from understanding the power of discipline to building momentum, from cutting distractions to creating a life that cannot be ignored, all of it comes down to one principle: focus on yourself relentlessly. When you dedicate your energy, your time, and your mind to your own growth, the world around you begins to respond. Opportunities appear, challenges become manageable, and results that once felt impossible suddenly become attainable. This speech was not about shortcuts or external validation. It was about ownership. Ownership of your actions, your decisions, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. The men and women who achieve extraordinary lives don't wait for motivation to arrive or for circumstances to be perfect. They act. They do what needs to be done regardless of how they feel. They embrace discomfort, they reject excuses, and they understand that growth requires consistency over years, not bursts over days. By focusing on yourself, you create a force that no external factor can stop. Momentum builds, discipline strengthens, and mastery develops naturally from persistent effort. You become unshakable, unstoppable, and undeniable. The world may try to distract you, discourage you, or derail you, but if your focus is unwavering, nothing can prevent you from achieving the life you deserve. The ultimate lesson is simple yet profound. Your life is the reflection of your choices, your actions, and your commitment to your own growth. Stop comparing yourself, stop seeking validation, and stop living for others. Dedicate yourself fully to the pursuit of excellence. Embrace the discomfort that comes with transformation and watch as the results of your relentless focus redefine your life. In the end, winning isn't about luck, it's about discipline, persistence, and the courage to prioritize yourself above everything else.